Alright, you may have heard of the Dark Side of the Moon before. This title was used by Pink Floyd for their classic album back in 1973 and later for Michael Bay's Transformer film in 2011. But is there actually a dark side of the moon? And if there is a dark side, what can we find there? Well, from Earth, we only get to see one side of the moon at a time. This is because the moon rotates on its axis once in the same time it takes to orbit Earth, which is about 27 days. The side we get to see is what we call the near side of the moon, and you can probably guess, the other side, the one we don't get to see, is the far side. So if it's called the far side, where does the dark side come from? Well, this is simply a misnomer and the title doesn't really make sense. From our earthly perspective, this side is never visible and as far as we can see is left in darkness. However, this is not true. The far side of the moon does get the same amount of sunlight as the near side, but we just don't get to see it. The moon experiences night and day just like we do on Earth. Due to a phenomenon called tidal locking, the moon slowed down its orbit because of the gravitational forces from Earth. Because of this, we see 50% of the moon at a time. However, during the lunar cycle, we end up seeing 59% of the moon. You can see it in this animation from NASA. This shows the moon during 2.5 lunar cycles combined into one animation. From this animation, you can see that the moon kind of wobbles through space and therefore shows a bit more of its surface. So even with this 9% of extra visibility on the moon's surface, we still cannot see what's on the other side. This was a mystery until 1959, when a Soviet space probe called Luna 3 made the first pictures of this side of the moon. Later in 1968, we had the first people to actually see the far side of the moon with their own eyes. They were on board of Apollo 8, which was the first mission to reach the moon's orbit and return. Later, the Apollo 11, the famous mission to actually land on the moon, also had the crew see the far side. They landed however on the near side of the moon, and the same goes for the missions that came after the Apollo 11. The reason for this was that the far side had a very rough exterior and the communication with Earth could have been lost. This already happened during an orbit of the Apollo 8 mission, which left the astronauts on board completely shut off from Earth. Can you imagine how scary that must have been? I mean, space is cool, but floating there with no communication? Anyway, on the far side of the moon you can find a rough exterior, which according to scans and photos contains craters which are so deep that they never seen sunlight on the bottom. So while the dark side is not an accurate name for the whole side of the moon, there are parts where it's definitely true. Thank you for watching my first YouTube video. I'll be doing a new video every Friday, so if you like this one, feel free to subscribe and I'll see you every Friday on this channel.